Most of Week 10 is in the books, and it started back on Thursday with the game between the Panthers and Bears. This game featured the number 1 overall pick in Bryce Young versus an undrafted rookie in Tyson Bagent. There may be a video on the Panthers soon in the entire situation, but guys, there's no positive words at this time. Wide receiver Adam Thielen called the offense embarrassing after the team did not score an offensive touchdown against Chicago, a team that was 5-21 under Matt Eberflus prior to this game, but I think we are significantly past embarrassing. They punted the ball with 4 minutes left on the Chicago 45-yard line on 4th and 4, and no offense, but what do you have to lose in this situation? Bryce Young is being set up to fail at the moment, and it is extremely unfortunate. For Chicago, this was a win-win. You get a win, and Carolina is still in line for the number 1 overall pick. With Kyler Murray back, it's hard to imagine the Panthers will outwin the Cardinals down the stretch of the 23 season. Tyson Bagent looks like an undrafted rookie quarterback, and JF1 will be back soon. This was a very ugly game, but this was a game that in May or June, I wish we could watch when we're all missing football. And on to Sunday, and the first game is Colts-Patriots. And like we said with the Panthers and Bears, this was a game I wish we could watch when we're missing football, but this was about what I expected between these teams. The Patriots scored 20 points or less for the 8th time in 10 games this year, and the best thing this franchise can do moving forward is to hit a complete reset. They need a complete overhaul. The Mac Jones interception on the second to last drive was absolutely embarrassing, and the Bailey Zappi fake spike interception right to the Colts player was the icing on the cake. The worst thing that could happen to New England is to finish the year with 6 wins and finish with the 9th overall draft pick. This offense is truly anemic. For Indy, they're back to 500 and are in theory in the playoff hunt as they enter their Week 11 bye. I know people probably laugh at the thought of this team in the playoffs, especially after watching this game, but their schedule is very, and I mean very, favorable down the stretch of the 23 season. 10 wins is not out of the question for this team, and back-to-back wins before the bye could not taste sweeter. Back to the US to discuss Titans-Bucks, and this was one of my fears for the Titans during the Will Levis honeymoon phase, if you will. This team isn't very good, and it was especially shown in this game. There is very little for Levis or any quarterback to work with on this team. The Titans ran the ball 16 times in this game for a total of 42 yards, and the weapons Will has to throw to are not good. They're 3-6, and not only are they 3-6, but remember how they finished their 2022 season. They lost their final 7 games of the year and have lost 6 of 9 to start the 2023 season, meaning they have now lost 13 of their last 16 games. And when you look at the roster, they too need a complete overhaul, period. For the Bucks, this was their first win since October 1st against the Saints, and this was a classic game of how the Bucks will win in 2023. They play suffocating defense, and they get the ball to their future Hall of Fame wide receiver. This was a very must-win game for Tampa, and next week is 2 against the 49ers, who are back. Up to the Steel City for Packers-Steelers as Green Bay fell to 3-6 while the Steelers improved to 6-3. With how young Green Bay's offense is, it was always going to be an uphill battle as the only starting skill position player above the age of 25 is running back Aaron Jones. And in this game, they looked a lot better than they have in previous weeks, and by a wide margin. They had nearly 400 yards of offense, with 399 to be exact, and out of any of the 4 games they've played since the bye, this was by far the most complete offensive effort they've had. They did beat the Brett Rippon-led Rams in Week 9, but I felt good about the Packers' offense coming out of this game. Now, for the Steelers, that's a different story. They're 6-3 and have not outgained any of their opponents this year. Not once. I don't have any significant takeaways for the Steelers other than how a lot of us already feel, meaning I think they're going to win around 10 games and lose in the wildcard round of the playoffs. Positively, I will say I was glad to see how much they got the run game going, and it was great to see them rush for over 200 yards as a team. Up to Minneapolis for Saints-Vikings, and midway through this game, Derek Carr left and Jameis Winston took over. Regardless of who's quarterback for this team, I still feel the same way about the Saints, and it's for a few reasons. I don't think Derek Carr is a great quarterback, and on top of it, I don't think he's a great play caller in Pete Carmichael, and when Jameis came in, it was pretty much hero ball, and what can he do to lead us out of this hole? And to Jameis' credit, I thought he did a solid job in relief. I know the stat sheet will show otherwise, but he gave his guys a chance, which is more than you can say about Derek Carr. And there was a substantial difference between the two, and it was noticeable. Minnesota has now won 5 in a row, and they play the Broncos and Bears in their next 2 games, and quite frankly, I would be surprised if this team is an 8-4 through 12 games. Josh Dobbs played well in this game, and my only complaint is with KOC, who at times gets a little conservative with a lead. Go for the kill. But there's a very real scenario where this team goes from 1-4 to 8-4, and oh yeah, they're getting a pretty good player by the name of Justin Jefferson back soon. From the land of 10,000 lakes to Charm City for Browns-Ravens, and the Ravens have suffered their 3rd loss of the year, and unfortunately for the Ravens, it's another loss like this. The Colts and Steelers losses stunk, yes, but this had a different feel because of the uncertainty with Ronnie Stanley and Marlon Humphrey, and the fact they led for over 59 minutes and 57 seconds of this game, only to lose on a game-winning field goal by Dustin Hopkins. This team also plays on Thursday against the Bengals, and it's very frustrating when they're not getting the ball to Mark Andrews offensively. I was very adamant that I think the Ravens are a Super Bowl caliber team when healthy, and that's the problem with the Ravens. Again. For Cleveland, this was a game you could very easily have rolled over as it was ugly quick, and Deshaun started the game just 1 of 9. But they kept battling, and Greg Newsome even had a pick 6, and Cleveland is quietly 6-3 with 3 very winnable games coming up, and 9-3 is not out of the equation for this team. Out to southwestern Ohio for Texans-Bengals, and it's time we have the CJ Stroud conversation. He is playing his tail off, and this was his 2nd straight 4th quarter comeback win, and this time it wasn't at home against the Bucs. It was on the road against a team that's been to back-to-back AFC Championship games, including a Super Bowl back in 2021. They're 5-4 on the year, and their 2 ugly losses against the Falcons and Panthers from being 7-2. I was skeptical when they gave their own 1st-round pick to go get Will Anderson, thinking the pick may have been high enough to go get Marvin Harrison Jr., but guys, the Texans are here, and they can win the AFC South this year, and that's the truth. The Houston Texans, with a rookie quarterback, can win the AFC South. For Cincy, yes, this loss stings, and I know the Tyler Boyd drop in particular hurts, but this game wasn't decided by that singular play. Houston could not run the football entering this game, and they went into your stadium and ran for nearly 200 yards. I don't think the Bengals are done, and we're not going to have any drastic takes like this, but there's a reason we did the Ravens and Bengals recaps with one after the other. They play each other Thursday, and it's an absolute must-win for both teams. Now down to Duval for 49ers Jags. In full transparency, I did think the 49ers were going to win this game, but I did not think it was going to be like this. They were coming off a bye, and Jacksonville was kind of flying under the radar as the most impressive win they had was against Buffalo, but outside of that, they beat bad teams. And when teams rebuild, you want to project the best for them, but we're only 18 months out from the Jags having the number 1 overall pick. I think they're a solid team, but I don't think they're close to seriously competing for the AFC title and ultimately a trip to a Super Bowl. And I thought before this game, and I don't know how many people truly thought the Jags were ready to take the next step this year. Guys, this was a 31-point loss at home off their bye week. Yes, they probably will beat Tennessee next week, but I'm not buying in with the Jags until they beat a premier team. For San Francisco, I know it's cliche, but they are back. They traded for Chase Young, and Steve Wilkes was on the field rather than being in the booth, and with how much talent this team has, it was hard to ever think they're flat out done or any of that general nonsense. They play Tampa next week at home, and I would be flat out shocked if they lost to the Bucs. Out to the desert for Falcons Cardinals, and I try to stay away from coach firings unless they are inevitable, but the Falcons lost to a 1-8 team and to a quarterback that hadn't played a game in nearly a full calendar year. And this was 7 days after losing to a team whose quarterback didn't know the playbook or know his teammates' names and was throwing to his teammates for the first time in a live game, referring to Josh Dobbs and the Vikings. They are now 4-6 on the year and have lost their 3rd straight game, and they have a Week 11 bye. If there was ever a time to fire a coach, it would be now. Not only have they lost 3 straight, but they started the year 2-0. This team underutilizes the talent they have like no other in football. The one positive thing I will say is Arthur fed Bijan on Sunday. For Arizona, Trey McBride had a hell of a game, and Kyler looked a lot better than I thought he would in his first game off the injury, especially factoring in his scrambling and running playing style. And with how the Cardinals looked in the first 9 games, this was refreshing to see, and especially for Kyler, who had a pretty big day personally on Friday. Giants-Cowboys is up, and we're not going to spend too much time on this, especially when AJ Soprano's friend Tommy DeVito is playing quarterback for the New York Football Giants. A 17-point spread doesn't happen often in the NFL, and Dallas covered by halftime and then some, and this game was never close. The one thing I do not want to see after this game, specifically this game, is the claim that Dallas is back and they're going to the Super Bowl because of this game. If you didn't win this game by double digits, something would have been seriously wrong. Dallas had over 600 yards of offense, and this was highlight reel after highlight reel. This was the game you played in high school against the shitty team in your area where you could stat pad and you knew that heading into the game. I don't think there's any takeaway on either side because what we all expected to happen happened. We can acknowledge when players play well, which Dallas did as plays still have to be made, but a 49-17 win over a team that will probably be drafting a quarterback in the top 2 or 3 picks doesn't really move me one way or another. A win is a win, and congratulations, I just don't think this means Super Bowl. To the great Northwest for Commanders Seahawks, and for the remainder of the season, I think we're going to be echoing a lot of the same thing for the Commanders. Ron Rivera will probably be canned after Week 18, and Jack Del Rio doesn't exactly make things better defensively either. And when you look at the Commanders' wins on the year, which were over the Cardinals, Broncos, Falcons, and Patriots, that's about what you would expect. They generally lose games against good teams, and I think a lot of that has to do with coaching and not making good decisions on top of it. To me, they are the epitome of a 6 or 7 win team. But unlike a lot of other years with Washington, the quarterback play looks good, and Sam Howell had his 3rd straight 300-yard game. He has been a very bright spot for this team, and he is a player to legitimately build around. For Seattle, this was a good bounce-back win, especially after the thumping they received at the hands of the Ravens last week. Typically, Pete Carroll teams bounce back, and this was no exception. It wasn't a perfect game, of course, and I think they will win next week against the Rams and improve to 7-3, but they'll have another big test on Thanksgiving against the big bad 49ers, and I can't wait to see how they play in that game. Now down to LA for Lions-Chargers in what was a shootout as the final score was 41-38. Detroit is now 7-2 on the year in the playoffs. Wait. The playoffs for the Lions? Yes, the playoffs for the Lions are on the horizon. Their next 5 games are on the screen, and I think it's realistic this team is 12-2 when they play the Vikings in Week 16. Will they be 12-2 is, of course, another question, and MCDC wouldn't want to think that far ahead, but for everyone that wanted to label Jahmyr Gibbs a waste of a pick, just have patience because the NFL season is a marathon and not a sprint. He has really come into his own over the last several weeks, and this was the plan all along. For the Chargers, I think the big takeaway is your franchise quarterback threw for over 325 yards and 4 touchdowns, and lost at home. Obviously, the 325 and 4 is impressive, but to do this at home and still lose is something else. I don't know any other takeaway you can have from the Chargers aspect, aside from your defensive guru head coach allowing 41 points, and again, not beating a playoff team. I don't talk about gambling picks on the channel often, but I really thought picking the Lions to win was one of the more easy picks of the day, simply because I do not trust Brandon Staley. And what do you know, he put together another masterclass and allowed over 530 yards and over 40 points, and his team lost. There's nothing more to say about the Chargers than that. I hope you enjoyed, and if you did, please like and subscribe. It's only about 27% of people watching are subscribed, and it helps tremendously. And until next time, please be safe and have a great day. Love you guys.